seeing other women and the whole thing. I mean, it was a big, big, big disappointment.
What if the fairy tale marriage everyone admired was built on secrets? At 92, Shirley Jones has finally broken her silence. Decades of whispers, heartbreak, and betrayals have come crashing into the open. And the truth she revealed doesn't just rewrite her love story, it reshapes her entire legacy. It all began like something straight out of Hollywood. Shirley Jones, the golden girl fresh from her Oscar win in Elmer Gantry, was the picture of grace and innocence. Jack Cassidy, Broadway's dazzling star, had the looks, the wit, and a voice that could command an entire room. When their worlds collided in the early 60s, the press couldn't get enough. Together, they looked like perfection itself, a leading lady and a leading man living the dream. To the outside world, it seemed impossible that their story would end any way but happily ever after. But behind the smiles and glittering red carpet appearances, shadows were forming. Shirley was swept up not only by Jack's talent, but by his intoxicating charm. He had the kind of energy that pulled people into his orbit, convincing everyone around him that he was the center of the universe. For Shirley, raised in a quiet Pennsylvania town, Jack represented danger and excitement. The Hollywood fast lane was thrilling, and in those early years, she was hooked. They threw parties filled with legends like Judy Garland and Frank Sinatra. Jack lit up every room, always the life of the show. Shirley adored his confidence and basked in his glow. Together, they looked unstoppable. But while cameras adored them, their home life told another story. Jack's appetite for attention didn't end when the spotlight dimmed. Flirtations turned into something more. Rumors swirled, whispers lingered, and Shirley tried to ignore them. Divorce wasn't something she believed in. She told herself this was just how men in Hollywood behaved. But the cracks grew wider. Jack wasn't just magnetic, he was restless. For him, attention was a drug. The more he had, the more he craved. His affairs became impossible to overlook, and they weren't limited to women. Behind the scenes, stories circulated about secret relationships with men in the theater world. At a time when Hollywood buried such truths, these whispers were explosive. Eventually, Shirley herself admitted what many had only suspected. Jack Cassidy was openly bisexual, at least in the privacy of their marriage. For Shirley, the revelation was devastating. She had married a man who would never belong to her alone. Jack confessed that he wanted to experience everything life had to offer. Every passion, every sensation, every relationship. He wasn't a man who could be tied down, not even by love. And so Shirley was left to live with the gnawing truth that she could never be enough for him. Every party, every performance, every trip raised the same painful question. Who would Jack charm next? But what cut the deepest wasn't just the affairs. It was the way Jack flaunted his double life, as if daring her to confront him. And when she finally did, his response was so shocking, it exposed just how fragile their marriage really was. To the world, Shirley Jones had it all: a glittering career, 3 beautiful sons, and a marriage people envied. But inside her home, she was trapped in a storm that no Hollywood script could have prepared her for. Behind the glamorous photographs and flawless interviews, Shirley Jones was carrying a weight no one could see. Jack's betrayals weren't whispers anymore. They were her daily reality, and the toll it took on her spirit was crushing. To the world, she was glowing with happiness. She smiled for the cameras, praised her husband when asked, and kept up the role of the perfect Hollywood wife. But privately, she was unraveling. She knew about the women. She knew about the men. And the hardest part was realizing Jack didn't even bother hiding it anymore. Friends remembered how he would openly flirt in front of her, sometimes vanishing at parties for hours before strolling back as if nothing had happened. Any other wife might have exploded, but Shirley bit her tongue. She clung to the vows she had been raised to honor, and with children to think of, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. Divorce wasn't in her vocabulary, so she endured, and the silence began to eat her alive. Shirley confessed later that Jack's behavior made her feel like she was never enough, no matter how hard she tried. And yet she loved him fiercely. That was the cruelest part. Her devotion clashed with his betrayals, pulling her into a cycle of forgiveness and heartbreak. When she confronted him, Jack never sugarcoated it. He looked her in the eye and said fidelity simply wasn't in his nature. He wasn't built for monogamy. For Shirley, it felt like being cut open, but she stayed because he was the love of her life. even as he was destroying her piece by piece. She hid her pain from the world. She threw herself into her career, into raising her boys, into maintaining the illusion of a perfect marriage. But those closest to her saw the truth. They saw her tears. They heard her doubts. They knew she was drowning in a love that was slowly breaking her. And then Hollywood itself began to notice. The rumors were no longer whispers. They were headlines. Jack Cassidy's private life had become public scandal, and Shirley was caught in the middle of it. By the late 60s, they weren't just the glamorous golden couple anymore. They were fuel for gossip columns. Jack's reputation as a flirt turned into stories that were bolder, stranger, and impossible to ignore. Blind items hinted at a leading man with a golden voice leaving clubs with much younger men. Tales spread of Jack making advances during rehearsals, sometimes with women, sometimes with men. Each rumor was more explosive than the last. Shirley was painfully aware. Friends would pull her aside and ask quietly if the stories were true. She'd smile, dismiss them with polite words, but inside she was crushed. She knew Jack wasn't hiding it. In fact, he seemed to flaunt it. At parties, after a few drinks, he would brag about his encounters, even within earshot of his wife. Some swore he enjoyed the shock, as if proving he couldn't be bound by anyone's rules, not even his own marriage. For Shirley, every whisper was another wound. She wasn't just a betrayed wife, she was America's sweetheart, expected to radiate dignity while Hollywood feasted on her humiliation. The irony was cruel. To audiences, she was the wholesome mother figure they adored. At home, she was holding together a marriage in chaos. The gossip eventually turned on her. People began questioning not just Jack's behavior, but Shirley's silence. Was she heartbreakingly loyal or hopelessly naive? Neither label fit, but she endured them all. The rumors never stopped. They grew louder, more vicious, harder to ignore. And while Shirley held on, desperately trying to preserve her family, everyone else could see her marriage was crumbling. But the real shock didn't come until decades later. At 92 years old, Shirley Jones finally broke her silence. And what she revealed didn't just confirm the whispers, it went further than anyone expected. The secrets she unveiled stunned even those who thought they already knew the story. Shirley admitted that Jack had never once been faithful. Not once. And while the world expected tales of his countless affairs with women, it was her confirmation of something Hollywood had only whispered about that left jaws on the floor. Jack Cassidy had affairs with men too. Something Shirley said she accepted, but could never fully understand. In an era when secrets like Jack's could destroy careers overnight, Shirley carried the burden for him. She protected his legacy even as it shattered her heart. Jack was consumed by desire, a man who admitted openly that one person could never be enough. He told her flatly that he would never be satisfied with fidelity, and Shirley, desperate to keep her family together, endured it. She confessed that her marriage left her heartbroken and drained, trapped between a love she couldn't let go of and betrayals that never stopped. What made her late-life revelations so powerful wasn't just the infidelity itself. It was her raw honesty about how much it destroyed her. Shirley admitted she felt humiliated, torn between her public image as America's sweetheart and the private agony of living with Jack's double life. And yet, through all of it, she still called him the love of her life. She spoke of Jack with a mixture of pain and tenderness, acknowledging his flaws while never denying the passion that bound them together. She revealed that Jack didn't even bother to hide his behavior. He flaunted it, almost daring her to leave. But still, she stayed. For decades, people wondered why Shirley didn't walk away. At 92, she finally gave the answer. Because she loved him. Because she believed in marriage. Because she couldn't imagine life without him. Her voice carried both strength and sorrow when she admitted the truth. It wasn't bitterness driving her confessions. It was freedom. After decades of silence, she was finally unburdened. But the freedom came with shockwaves. Fans were stunned. Critics re-examined Jack's legacy. Hollywood insiders whispered about what else might have been hidden. Her confessions didn't just peel back the curtain on a troubled marriage. They forced the world to rethink one of Hollywood's most glamorous couples. For years, Jack Cassidy had been remembered as a charismatic Broadway star, a familiar face on television, and the larger-than-life father of teen idol David Cassidy. But Shirley's words cracked that polished memory in half. Suddenly, the industry was faced with two Jacks, the charming leading man and the reckless, self-destructive husband. Some fans felt betrayed, unable to reconcile the beloved performer with the man Shirley described. Others weren't shocked at all, claiming the rumors had always been there. What unsettled everyone most wasn't just the infidelity, but the brazen way Jack lived it, flaunting his double life in a time when one exposed scandal could end everything. For Shirley, the fallout was bittersweet. She had finally spoken her truth, but at the same time, she was watching her husband's reputation unravel piece by piece. His affairs with women and men became the headlines. Even his tragic death in a fire at only 49 was revisited through this darker lens, seen as a reckless end to a reckless life. And yet Shirley never painted him as a villain. She reminded the world again and again, Jack was the love of her life. She adored him, even as he broke her heart over and over. That contradiction fascinated people. How could she love him so deeply while suffering so much devastation? The debate split Hollywood. Some praised her loyalty and resilience. Others criticized her silence, arguing she sacrificed too much of herself for a marriage that was doomed from the start. Their children carried the scars too. David Cassidy had long spoken about his father's narcissism and chaos, but Shirley's honesty gave his words new weight. Fans began to look back at David's own struggles with addiction and fame and wondered how much of it traced back to Jack's destructive influence at home. The Cassidy name, once glowing with wholesome charm through the Partridge family, now carried shadows of scandal and heartbreak. But Shirley's courage didn't tarnish her. If anything, it deepened her legacy. She was no longer just the radiant actress from a golden era. She became a truth teller, a woman brave enough to reveal the cost of loving someone like Jack Cassidy. Her words made her more human, more relatable, more respected. She carried silence for decades, and at last she was free. But even in her honesty, one haunting question lingers. Did Shirley tell us everything? Or were there still darker truths she chose to keep buried? In her pauses, in the things she didn't say, many believe she left pieces untold, memories too painful or too explosive to ever share. What she revealed was already haunting enough. Jack thrived on chaos, addicted to pushing boundaries, leaving her humiliated yet still devoted. Shirley admitted she would never stop loving him, even as he broke her. And that paradox is what makes her story unforgettable. Because if this is what she chose to confess at 92, the world is left to wonder. What secrets did Shirley Jones carry to the grave, never to be known?